problems with the cops, with the court system. People, they lose when they go to the courts. However, the real problem, it's not the IRS agent, it's not the real people who are dealing with you behind the corporate entities, but the people himself. For example, if you receive a correspondence from an IRS agent, it's not the IRS that you're problem with. It's the person who's sending you that letter. So you have to make sure that what's going to be your target. For a change, this book is not about anti-government. Instead, this book is about knowing all the codes, all the laws, so that you don't violate them. This is very important. So we want to make sure that we understand the codes so that we can basically use the codes for our own benefit. Now, the last 60 years, there is a new law in town, and it's called UCC. UCC is Uniform Commercial Code, and it's the code of commerce. Now, everyone is involved in commerce. If you're living in a society, you are involved in understanding with each other. So basically, if you're going to be living in a society, there are some certain codes that you're going to have to follow. People, they tell us, they call us, and they say basically that they don't want to be involved in Social Security, they don't want to be involved in driver's license, they don't believe in driver's license, they don't believe in IRS. However, everyone should realize that if you are in a society and there is an understanding, then if you accept Federal Reserve notes for your labor, if you want to drive and you register your car, all these are contracts. And contracts make the law. Yes, you're sovereign, however, you surrender some of your sovereignty when you get involved in contracts. Now, what are those contracts? All those contracts are coded. Coded means there are a certain understanding between people that we agreed upon by contract, and after getting involved voluntarily, we cannot just say, well, it doesn't apply to us, or we're not going to go for it. So people, they get involved in a lot of trouble by saying that, well, I have constitutional rights. You go to the court and the judge says, not in my court. Constitution is not in my court. And you just think about it. Constitution is not in my court? I thought that this country has a constitution. I thought that all the government employees, they're under the Constitution. So how come this judge acting as a god and telling me that not in my court? Well, there is a problem. Are they violating any law? No, they're not. They're not, because there are some certain contracts that you agreed upon, and basically it waives your rights for constitutional rights, and also it waives your Bill of Rights. The court system basically is like a private club. It has nothing to do with United States government. It has to do with a franchise to the English bar. They have their representatives, which is basically the attorneys. And these attorneys, of course, they have a permission from the bar to practice law. Now, if you start practicing law, they will put you in jail probably. And the reason why, it's not because you cannot talk about the law, is because all these codes, it's been copyrighted by a Canadian company, which is a British company, for us. So if anything is copyrighted, the copyright law kicks in. And if you use the copyrighted material, you are in violation of the codes. Attorneys, they have permission to use the laws. They pay the franchise fees. You don't. You have to pass the Bar Association exam, and you have to get their authorization to use the codes. So if anyone is going to enter in a contract with you, you have to understand that they cannot do it in force. It needs to be with your agreement. So anytime that you do business with someone, meeting of the minds, it's very important. Both parties need to agree upon the contract. The reason why I'm saying this, because no one can put a gun in your head and force you to sign anything. The court system is the same way. It's a private arena. So they cannot force you to go to the court unless someone files a complaint and someone gives their rights to the court, and the court will act on behalf of the person. However, the court is a third entity. It's not the main person to come after you, even though you think so. So just understanding this, you should realize that if you get a summons, which we're going to, of course, cover it at the end of the day, if you get a summons, it's basically an invitation. And they need to have your agreement so that you can go to the court, and you're going to have to submit yourself, and you have to allow the court to basically talk to you, prosecute you, or whatever. But they need your agreement. That's the reason why when you go to the court, the judge will ask your name. As soon as you stand up and you tell them who you are, you gave your name to the judge, which the name is a property, by the way. We're going to discuss about that. You gave your name to the judge so that he can use it without having any commercial liability. Now, if your name, of course, is copyright, then you're going to have to notify everyone that you're not willing to do business without compensation. And now they have a big problem. They're going to have to use every single trick in the book so that they can get your agreement to cooperate with them. So let's talk about how we got in this mess. Now, we know that God, which we call it God, the divine power, created man. So God is the creator, and men cannot go above God. This is natural law. Now, men created a constitution, which is a contract, and the constitution created a government. And a government created corporations like IRS and all the other corporations. Now, since we created the government, how come today the government is on top of us and forcing us to abide by all these rules, codes, laws, and if we don't abide with it, then obviously we're in trouble. So it's against the natural law if we think it that way. However, there was a very smart move. It was done back in the 30s. And what it was done is, which basically the majority of the people, they missed it, a sovereign is a sovereign. A corporation cannot control a sovereign because it's created by a sovereign. Corporations, they're fictitious entities. It's a legal entity, however, it's not a human being. It's been created by us. So what I'm trying to say is, when you create a corporation, you create it for your own benefit. And if you don't like it, you just get rid of it and have another corporation. Now, having this in mind, what happened is, when a child was born, the parents, they registered the child with the state or the government agencies. And they sold it to the American people. That was the Maternity Act in, I think, 1912. They sold it to the people that the government will take care of the children, since we had the household, the father working, and the mother used to take care of the children. So they wanted to help the mother and the children, so they passed this Maternity Act. And one of the Maternity Acts says that, well, since the husband is busy with all his work to take care of the family, we are going to give some benefits so that we can make it easier for the mother and the children. So in order to do that, they wanted to know every single child, name, birth date, all this specification. And by doing that, people, they start registering their children with the state and the government agencies. Now, when the child is born, you have a true name. They call it Christian name. Now, I'm not going to talk about religion because it has nothing to do with Christianity. However, the Constitution was based on the Bible, so I would say that this is what it's been adopted. So when a child is born, before this Maternity Act, people, they used to have 2 witnesses and a Bible, and they used to register their children, and that was acceptable by everybody. But after this Maternity Act, people, they start registering their children